as the private sector braces for extra opportunities in free zone space, with non-export-oriented production limited to only 20%, growing openings for private sector investment, propose big potential for export-oriented manufacturing, as over 81% of manufacturers are constituted in the free zones according to last year's report from the authority. In financial year 2021-2022, manufacturing activities generated the highest capital investment value, worth $519.02 million, accounting for 80.55% of total investments. This was followed by mining and quarrying activities, which generated $74.89 million at 12% of total investment. Agriculture, forestry, and fishing registered $34.03 million. Transportation and storage services at $16.81 million, while administrative and support service activities registered the least capital investment at $2,480.
We have issues of water, issues of ICT backbone infrastructure for business process outsourcing and other IT-enabled services, and so many other things. And so the import of free zones is to make sure that the cost of production goes down, and when the cost of production goes down, it means even when you go to the market, you'll be more competitive, because your pricing policy will not be a bad one. How are we going to compete with the Ghanaians who have uptime in their Tema industrial zone, Tema free zone, of 99.7% of electricity, okay, and they're not using thermal generators, because it's a government policy that we shall not put thermal generators in our industrial zones, but we shall ensure that there is higher uptime. So with you buying a diesel, with you buying a generator of up to probably $100,000, how are you going to compete? So this is where free zones comes in.
While Kenya has made significant strides in export promotion through free zones, Uganda intends to learn from Nairobi's experiences and carve its own path, benchmarking on schemes, incentives, and land acquisition. Collaboration between government and the private sector is the foundational element to tap into sustainable tourism, support for technology-driven startups, and a window to international markets.
Uganda came in 2014. Which was over 20 years after Kenya had started implementing the legal framework. So, of course, the disadvantages sometimes you get is that by the time you start, the other competing countries in the region have already started. But also it has an advantage that it helps you to learn the best practices in implementing this zone. So the lessons we've had from Kenya has been largely on the legal framework, because the current legal framework that we have also evolved into, or we are evolving into, and that is special economic zones, is a much wider scheme. So it has helped us as a country to learn from the best practices in Kenya.
So in Kenya, if they have these special economic zones and you don't have them, you are greatly disadvantaged, because you are in a customs union, you are in a common market. A common market means you have a customs union and the free movement of factors of production, including labor, human beings. And so that's why it is important that when we go to the community at the regional level and we agree on certain things, then we implement them.
Growing private sector investment is expected to influence numerous sector growth, such as employment. In financial year 2021-2022, employment in free zones stood at 9,861, a 17.5% increase from 8,389 jobs in 2020-2021. Foreign-induced jobs added up to 7,127, accounting for 72%, while locally induced jobs amounted to 2,734, 28%.
However, from the perspective of how far it has gone till this point, a lot more information needs to be circulated within the business community. They need to be how can I say, oriented more into how to use these free zones and why they could be of great use to their specific businesses. Right now, it is much more or less a guess game. But the private sector, through organizations and institutions such as the Private Sector Federation, the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industries, the Uganda Manufacturers Association, need to let the business community know much more about these free zones. They do exist.
The reason why free zones are established is to ensure that we increase the market for raw materials and we increase opportunities for employment. So that gives us when they come and help us on reducing on the burden of creation of employment, we welcome them.
Investment in trade facilitation, such as infrastructure to ease transport and movement of logistics, simplifying customs, plus public-private partnerships are lined up as key areas to support investment growth for both the private sector and the free zones. Bronia Katusiime, SMART24 TV, Business Today.